to me, at that point in my career and life, I sort of took it for granted. This must be how all companies operate, and clear principles and that kind of culture. And I didn't at that time make the connection between, the faith and the ethics that flowed from that faith among our leaders and the way that was shaping the company that I was part of.
Can you think of any stories or examples of something you noticed as a young man starting your way where, wow, this is interesting, this is a little different, these principles you're referring to? Yeah,
well, I think it was, there was a willingness that was, the water cooler conversation, it reflected a willingness that the company had to walk away from business opportunities that would be very lucrative for the company, but would violate the principles that were on the wall. And our leaders in those days kind of used a terminology that was, no one's personal bottom line is more important than the reputation of the firm.
No one's personal bottom line is more important than the reputation of the firm.
And so, and this was this idea that every dollar is not a good dollar, and that there are clients that you don't want to serve, and that there are business opportunities that you really can't or shouldn't pursue if you're going to be faithful to your principles. Our counsel, Steve Hammerman, who ultimately was vice chairman of the firm, he was never trying to step away from regulation. He was always very quick to point out that to the whole of Wall Street that we needed internally to be our strongest regulators. We needed to find problems before the regulators did and take them to the regulators. And we now see in the years after the financial crisis that was a pretty timeless piece of wisdom that was lost. Ultimately.
I don't know a lot of other wealth managers who have a guy like Jim Ryan, who just hosted, as one of their wealth managers, and he and his team hosted a day-long seminar, which unfortunately I was unable to attend, but one of my postdocs went, on, here's the phrase, faith-consistent investing. Faith-consistent investing. What the heck was that about?
Well, it's... this is one of the most fascinating, and I think ultimately will prove to be one of the most powerful trends in the investing world. It's kind of coming. It's been brought upon us by a demand from many of our clients to no longer view their investment activities separate and apart from the way they think about their communities, the broader world that we inhabit, the values that they hold dear. And faith-consistent investing is really one manifestation of an idea we call impact investing, which is an idea of viewing an investment portfolio not simply through the lens of risk versus return, which is kind of the classic way to think about a portfolio, but to add a third dimension to that, and to understand that you can have portfolios that are optimal in risk return, in terms of risk and return, but they can be very different in terms of their impact on the broader world. What was this different wavelength 3 years ago? The way I would feel that is when we had a big training meeting with 500 financial advisors, and we had a breakout session focused on impact investing. There would be 2 or 3 lonely people in the room that reminded you of the Maytag repairman 3 years ago. Today, in a very short period of time, it's the most popular breakout session there is, because we sort of encourage advisors, have this conversation with your boomer clients, and you'll be amazed at what you hear. And they have the conversation. They've been amazed and somewhat disoriented by what they've heard, and they want to learn a lot more. In very practical terms, how you communicate and work with the colleagues who are in your immediate circle is where it begins, because there is a strong tendency at every point in your career as you progress to feel that you know more than you really do. My father at the dining room table, the strongest lessons that he delivered pointed terms to my brothers and me was the most dangerous people are the ones who don't know what they don't know. I think you need to be, the more you move forward in your career and the more your organization begins to have some levels, you need to work extra hard to reach out of the normal circles that you're in and ensure that you are really in touch with what's happening. Stepping away, if you're 24/7, doing your job in a way that is I'm sure in many ways is sort of stereotypically the road to ever greater success. If you're not putting boundaries on that, stepping away and, really living a life with your family, taking time to read outside of, the publications that are driving work. In my case, in the last few years, spending time reading and understanding my faith, all of those activities are what gives you that critical distance from what's happening in the workplace to, I hope on a good day, create that impulse inside you that says, that just doesn't feel right, or we're really we're doing some things that maybe the whole organization's comfortable with, but it seems in conflict with that other part of my life. If you don't have that other part of your life, you miss it entirely.